And if you do believe that it's all about simply withholding information, BBC One broadcast a show called Everyman Sleeping with the Enemy on December 13th of 1998. Mr. Hardy, who was the presiding minister of the Watchtower Society in Britain, made the claim, as Jehovah's Witnesses often do, that quotations that were used were not in context, and so on and so forth. He said that the material had wrongly given the impression that Jehovah's Witnesses believed that Jesus Christ would kill those who were not Jehovah's Witnesses, that a Jehovah's Witness would be disfellowshipped if he allowed his child to have a blood transfusion, and that Jehovah's Witnesses were willing to allow their children to die for want of medical treatment. This was all stated at a hearing held by the Commission. A man named Mr. Misruther alleged that his son had told him that he would be destroyed at Armageddon unless he went to the Kingdom Hall. The image of a sword striking a divine judgment had been shown, conveying what Mr. Hardy called the erroneous idea that Jehovah's Witnesses believed that salvation was gained by performing religious duties. Mr. Hardy was not lying. He was using Theocratic War Strategy. Of course, we know that these allegations are absolutely true. They do believe that those outside of their organization would be killed. They do believe that it's possible that some of them will be spared, but probably 99% of those outside of their organization will be killed. They certainly will disfellowship someone if they allow their child to have a blood transfusion, and they are willing to allow their children to die for want of medical treatment. Certainly they do believe that salvation is gained by performing religious duties. That's why they always push the idea that faith without works is dead, that if you're not out preaching the word, going door to door, you won't make it into the new system. The allegations were all completely true, but Mr. Hardy used Theocratic War Strategy to say that they were not. How is this justified? Because those facts could hamper and impair the preaching work, and those outside of the organization were not entitled to know the truth. He was doing as he believes God allows him to do, which is to give misdirecting information to the profane. A Jehovah's Witness began a debate with me on my video about Michael the Archangel, and you'll see him using Theocratic War Strategy. The very first thing he did was assume that I was a Trinitarian and attacked my beliefs, or what he thought were my beliefs. He said, "You can't prove your own polytheistic rubbish doctrines, so you have nothing better to do than exaggerate and spread hateful propaganda. Very nice. Try being productive sometime." Now you'll notice that Jehovah's Witnesses are constantly railing against other religions, making videos, writing articles about how evil all the other religions are. But the moment someone speaks a word against theirs, suddenly it's hateful propaganda. His very first comment was insulting to what he thought I believed. Next he moved on to the very next step that Jehovah's Witnesses take, which is to attempt to elevate his religion by lowering other religions. He asked, "Do you honestly think we're more crazy than Pentecostals and Scientologists?" Well, maybe the guy that thinks he's Napoleon is less crazy than the guy that thinks he's from outer space, but they're both fucking crazy. It doesn't matter if you're more or less crazy than Pentecostals or Scientologists, you're still out of your mind and you're a liar on top of it. He went on to do exactly that, to lie. He said not all JWs think Michael equals Jesus. It could be, might not, and that guess has nothing to do with any 1914 prediction. First of all, he came out and lied here about what they believe. They do believe Michael is Jesus. This is a fact. They've written it many places. It's what they teach and what they believe. And then he went on to make a straw man argument, saying it had nothing to do with any 1914 prediction. If you watch my two videos about Michael and Jesus, nowhere in there do I say that the belief that Michael is Jesus has anything to do with any prediction about 1914. Not once. It's never stated, it's never implied. But this is Theocratic War Strategy, giving misdirecting information to hide true knowledge from those who do not deserve it. When I told him that the 1914 thing he brought up was a straw man argument, he responded with, "Why does this video say the origins of the Michael as Jesus belief?" and yet you spend a majority of the time talking about how various people believe the kingdom of heaven would be established in some way in the late 1800s. Were you just entirely off topic, or were you trying to establish a correlation? Because some chick got hit with a rock believed both? Let's look at the actual title of my video. The Origins of the Michael the Archangel as Jesus Belief, Part 1. A Brief History of the Millerite Adventists, Seventh-day Adventists, and Jehovah's Witnesses, and Introduction to Johannes Grieber. As I thoroughly documented in the video, nobody believed that Jesus was Michael the Archangel before Ellen White conceived of the idea. Charles Taze Russell, the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses, said himself that he didn't believe it, and he showed biblical reasons to show that Jesus could not be Michael the Archangel. Ellen White originated the idea. She was the founder of the Seventh-day Adventists. There are similarities between the two groups. I was showing what some of them were, their common origins in the Millerite Adventists, and then how the idea that Jesus as Michael has continued to be promoted by the Watchtower Society. I only say it right there in the fucking title! Another lie you'll notice is he says I spent the majority of the time talking about how various people believe the kingdom of heaven would be established in some way in the late 1800s. Apparently 3 or 4 minutes out of 20 minutes is the majority of the time. Another thing you'll notice is he never even touches the material about Johannes Grieber. He can't even lie his way out of that. So instead, he latches onto something of no significance whatsoever, and you'll watch as he desperately tries to continue doing this. He says, you spend over 6 minutes talking about a handful of groups making claims that have nothing to do with the identity of Jesus. You don't even get the point until 6:20, where you say the belief comes from a prophecy of some crazy chick. Newsflash, it did come from the prophecy of a crazy chick. As I explained probably 4 or 5 times to him, since both groups came from the same place, the Millerite Adventists, and have some of the same teachings, I was showing their common roots. Since I explained this more than once, there's only 3 ways to explain why he wasn't grasping this. 1, he's a complete moron and can't grasp basic concepts. I don't think that's true. He seemed fairly literate. I don't think that he's a moron. 2, he wasn't really paying attention to what I was saying and just wanted to continue his own argument. Or 3, he read what I said, but knew he had to continue to distort the argument in order to try to discredit what the video said by latching onto 1 or 2 less important details. Whether it's option 2 or 3, it shows that he came to the video with an agenda. He had a very specific axe to grind, and he was either going to ignore what I said or deliberately distort what I said to push across his agenda. He was using deliberately misleading information. Theocratic War Strategy. He goes on to say, throughout the video you never even mention the Bible verses that point to the correlation, referring to the correlation between Michael and Jesus. Do you know why I don't? Because I don't give a flying fuck. Ellen White originated the theory, I proved it, that's it. That was my only point. I don't care if you pull out correlations to prove that Jesus was actually Bozo the Clown. I'm not going to sit and list all of the scriptures that you use to prove your theory. I don't care if your theory is true or not. He goes on to say, I think you need to watch your own video for an example of a straw man. No, because I don't care if the theory is true or not for the purpose of the video. The purpose of the video is to show where the teaching originated. I did that. That's not a straw man. A straw man is when you take an argument that doesn't exist, attribute it to someone else, say that's what they're arguing, and then disprove an argument that you invented. I did not do this. I showed the early history of the Seventh-day Adventists and the Jehovah's Witnesses, their origins in the Millerite, the Millerite Adventists, where the Michael the Archangel teaching originated, and how it was continued through Johannes Grieber. Nowhere did I invent a fictional argument for my opponents. It was not a straw man. This was more Theocratic War Strategy. He was deliberately being misleading, hoping to discredit the entire video by picking out something minor and twisting what it was saying. He was making a straw man. He was trying to say that my argument was that they believed it because Ellen White said it. I never said this, and you'll see that he continues to say that this was my argument. It is not. I don't believe that the Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Michael the Archangel is Jesus Christ because Ellen White said it. I believe that that was where the original teaching originated. It was probably where they got the idea initially. But I don't believe that they sit down and say, well, we believe this because Ellen White said it. Nowhere in my video did I state this at all, or imply it, ever. But as you continue to listen, you'll see that he continues to claim that this is what I say in the video. If you sit and watch both videos, you'll see that he's lying.